The stories you are about to hear are entirely true. They are some of history's most notorious and sinister mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual witnesses and police involved have participated in the recreation of these events. Your hosts, senior mystery analysts Ben Patesky and John Nafziger, have been investigating the unknown and solving the world's greatest riddles for over a year. They work tirelessly for your own good, exploring the dark in order to bring the truth to light. This is Drunk Mysteries.
Welcome to another episode of Drunk Mysteries. Apparently, Alyssa Milano is one of the most reasonable feminists out today, so...
That's right, Ben. She is amicable. My name is John Nafziger. I'm your host, along with my aforespoken co-host, Ben Patesky. This is Drunk Mysteries.
Welcome and we are not in any way affiliated with Melissa Milano, nor do we want to be.
Never met her.
Nor do we want to be. But keep going.
Yeah, so this is Drunk Mysteries. If you haven't already, please, I'll just say that I'll give us the plug. Subscribe and review to us in iTunes. It's incredibly helpful. Honestly, we're trying to sort of make this a nation and global phenomenon.
It's the show where we drink a lot during the show and before it for the most part. John, What are you drinking today out of curiosity?
Today, I'm having one of the accumulation from New Belgium.
John, how many accumulations from New Belgium have you drunk?
Several, I would say. Honestly, it's really good.
I've been counting, and he is drinking 2 Irish coffees with about 1 shot of whiskey.
Maybe. Who's counting?
In them each. I was trying to think how many that was. And then he's also drinking five of those beers after that. And I'm about in the same place, although I have not been counting. But John, take us away. Where are we now? So
this week on Drunk Mysteries, we are going to talk about the infamous D.B. Cooper plane hijacking that took place in the early 70s.
Okay.
It was the guy hijacked a Boeing 727 aircraft in the airspace between Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington on November 24th, 1971. He successfully stole $200,000 in ransom, equivalent to over $1 million today, and then he parachuted to an uncertain fate out of the plane.
Wow.
Despite an extensive manhunt, they never found anything or him. Evidence and expert opinion suggest that from the beginning, Cooper probably did not survive his high-risk jump. We don't know. The FBI officially suspended the active investigation of the case in July of 2016.
Okay, so over several years, over 50, is it 50 years? Is that 50 years?
Yeah,
it's
no,
over
40.
It's over 45. It's over 45 years after. So, I mean, you guys, let's just be real for a second. This was a master hijacking that took place. So, while available evidence and expert opinion suggested from the beginning that Cooper probably... You already read this.
No, keep going.
Okay, so while he did not survive this
I paraphrase.
high-risk jump, the FBI nevertheless maintained an active investigation for 45 years following the hijacking, despite a case file that grew to over 60 volumes.
A fucking 4 or 5 case briefings.
And you guys, if you don't know how long a volume is, then you're in for a surprise, because a volume is
really big.
It's over 10,000 pages.
All that is known.
So this is over 6 million pages of
assumedly. All that we really know is that the suspect purchased his airline ticket using the alias Dan Cooper. But later, because of media miscommunication, he became known as lore. He became known in the popular lore as D.B. Cooper. The FBI officially suspended the active investigation of the case in July 2016.
Just 2 years from...
But they continue to request any information. If you've got deets, send them...
If you have any details, please send it. So, you guys, we want to dive right into this mystery.
We're going to start with the hijacking. Okay, so the hijacking. On Thanksgiving Eve, so a Wednesday, November 24th, 1971, a middle-aged guy carrying a black attaché case. He approached the flight counter.
What does attaché mean, John?
I think it's a fashion sort of statement. Okay. Like he's got it. It's it's off to the side, but like it means business, if you will, right?
I legitimately did not know.
So he approaches the flight counter of the Northwest Orient Airlines in Portland International Airport. He identified himself as Dan Cooper and used cash to purchase a one-way ticket on Flight 305, a 30-minute trip from Portland to Seattle.
A budget flight.
You know, maybe one might say like a...
And if you've ever been
je ne sais quoi.
If you've ever been to Europe, it was basically an Air Ryan flight. But I digress. So what happened next is, so the man known as Dan Cooper up to this point boarded the aircraft. It was again a Boeing 727. He took a seat in the rear of the passenger cabin, not first class, we should mention.
No, just like a budget again.
Yeah,
budget.
Yeah. So this is when you could smoke on airplanes. So he lit a cigarette.
So he's in the back of this. He's in the back of this plane, and it's the 70s, and he's thinking to himself, he's about to let's suspend disbelief for a second. This guy is our suspect. He hijacks his plane.
Yeah.
So during before takeoff, he's in the back. He orders a bourbon. Are you okay?
We're counting our chickens before they hatch.
Are you okay?
He hasn't hijacked it yet.
No. Wow. Okay.
Okay. So let me get back.
I was trying to paint a picture to our audience. So our main suspect right now is just sitting calmly on the back of this Boeing 727.
Dan Cooper.
And he orders a bourbon from, I assume, an incredibly attractive blonde, just beautiful, model-esque.
She has the
flight
hair
attendant.
That's popping out
Just
from her
fucking
shoulders. You know what I'm
porn star
talking about? That's
haircut.
70s hair.
Classic bombshell. Anyway, he orders a bourbon on ice, no chase, to himself, and he lights a cigarette. Meanwhile, this is back in the 70s. You could smoke on an airplane unimpeded. Anyway, so this is a guy who's just calm, cool, collected. He's in a nice suit. He's in a trench coat. Shiny loafers. I assume he got them polished.
Just under 6 foot, as described by the many people on the plane.
He's got a nice tie, but to complement that, a mother of pearl tie pin.
Okay, so wait, John, can I interject real quick?
Go ahead, please.
So, according to the many police reports that we have in front of us, Cooper, when he first got on the plane, was described as the various stewardesses and other passengers as a suave, 5'10",
calm,
collective man that you might see on the advertisement for some sort of Versace cologne.
Identity.
Yeah, you know who he is? He is George Clooney 20 years ago.
Agreed.
Okay.
He's like if George Clooney from the ER era was the spy. Anyway, so shortly after takeoff, Cooper is calmly sitting in the back of his airplane, and a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner sits next to him. Why
did she sit next to him?
Well, I mean, he was in the back of the plane.
Why did she sit next to him?
Well, okay, next to is being generous.
Did she sit in the seat next to him?
You know how on the back of the planes, there's you sit, and then it's a little bit different from the regular rows, and the flight attendants are nearby.
Yeah, I know, but
again, this
next
is
to him,
40 years ago.
All right, keep going with the story. We'll figure this out later.
Anyway, Cooper slides her a note, and eventually, basically, she kind of blows it off. She's like, "This is just some
what did the note
businessman." She thinks it's just some dude trying to drop her fucking line, being like, "Give me out! I'm trying to hit that sweet ass." Mm-hmm. So she blows it off. But eventually, he leans forward and he says, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb."
Oh man. So, listen, people. This is the kind of note that she received. The note was printed in neat, all capital letters with a pen. He hadn't printed this off a printer. He had actually wrote it with a pen in all capital letters. Its exact wording is unknown. Although, this is only because Cooper later...
He took the note back.
He took it back from the fucking stewardess. Mm-hmm. But Schaffner recalled, the woman that he gave it to, that he indicated that he had a bomb in his briefcase and directed her to sit beside him.
Schaffner did as requested, then quietly asked to actually see the bomb. So Cooper, confidently just cracked his briefcase long enough for her to glimpse 8 red cylinders. So you
he had a bomb.
Stick.
He had a bomb.
It was gonna blow up.
He had multiple bombs ready. So he said, quote, "I have 4 on top of 4 attached to wires with red insulation and large cylindrical batteries."
Well, he just said the 4 on top of 4 part. The other is just actually that it had wires. So
we're
after
not
closing,
scientists.
Yeah, who knows? After closing the briefcase, though, he dictated his demands to Schaffner, the stewardess. He wanted $200,000 in negotiable American currencies, 4 parachutes, 2 primary, 2
John.
preserve. Yeah.
What does negotiable American currency mean?
I suppose it means like easily fluid, not restricted. Basically, the numbers weren't tainted on the serial. I'm assuming. I mean, unless you have an answer, because I don't.
I have no fucking clue.
I look so speculate wildly. What do you got?
So I'm speculating wildly
About the meaning of negotiable.
Negotiable. Okay, I don't think it has a meaning, honestly. So we get most of our notes, if not all of our notes, off of Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is nothing if not reliable.
It's
so
great.
it's
I love it.
a random person put that in. So bear in mind, I want you to know this: the drunken mysteries that you were listening to, while we are extremely drunk, we don't. And I mean that, by the way.
Pulling back the curtain. Go ahead. Lay into
I
it.
mean that. But
I'm wasted. We've been drinking for 4 or 5 hours.
yeah, 4 or 5 hours doing this fucking shit.
But this is our 4th of the night.
But yeah.
Going on.
What I'm saying is that we don't know what we're saying is true or not.
Look, guys, here's the news.
We hope it is. We try to break
things
these
are
down
get-
as best we can. John, keep going. Don't fucking pause. Keep going.
I'm not pausing. So, look, I'm going to go back to his demands. He wanted, again, $200,000 in negotiable American currency.
Whatever
he
that
wanted
means.
4 parachutes. He wanted 2 primary and 2 reserve. He wanted a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the aircraft upon arrival. Remember, they were traveling to Seattle, Washington. Mm-hmm. The flight attendant, Schaffner, conveyed Cooper's instructions to the pilot in the cockpit. When she returned, he was wearing dark sunglasses, which she just found odd.
Yeah, it would be odd.
So the pilot contacted the Seattle-Tacoma Airport Air Traffic Control, which in turn informed the local and federal authorities. Mm-hmm. The other 36 passengers were given false information that their arrival in Seattle would be delayed because of a minor mechanical difficulty. Basically,
So the passengers are in the dark.
Basically, like, the plane is flying towards Seattle. Mid-flight, they get somebody hijacks them and like holds them for ransom, essentially. So we've got, so quick recap. D.B. Cooper, this guy has just come upon the board, the flight in the Boeing 2727, slipped a note to the flight attendant and shown her that he has a bomb on board, dictated his demands. So essentially the flight relays that to the captains, relay that to the ground. So he has demands. It's going to take time. They can't immediately.
Absolutely.
But meanwhile, they're 20 minutes from where they were going. So they tell the crew they can't land for a while.
No, they're in a pickle.
Yeah,
No one's
so they
denying
say
that.
so they can't land for a while. So meanwhile, on the ground, the airline company's president had authorized payment of the ransom and ordered all employees.
So what you're saying is they said, so the airlines have been contacted and they want
This
to
is
pay
going to
D.B.
the top.
Cooper. You guys, wait, bear in mind, John, can I just say something real quick?
Yeah, please.
This is pre 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in this point in time in the 70s, if you hijacked a plane, you weren't necessarily a terrorist. You were probably just a bank robber or something.
Yes, it was a bank robbery on a bigger scale.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people didn't think you were going to do
holding-
something fucking batshit
You were
and fly a
essentially
plane
what
into
you were
a building.
doing was holding the airline's insurance company for ransom.
Yeah, no one thought you were a suicide bomber. No,
No.
one even knew what a suicide bomber was.
Not been
Yeah,
conceived.
so so you have to just bear in mind, keep in context with the episode that we're not talking about a bunch of Al-Qaeda people. We're talking about some guy who was a George Clooney type Ocean's level criminal of some kind. John, keep going.
So, back to my outline, my notes about this case. So the president authorized the payment of the ransom, and he authorized.
Who was the president at the time?
It's not really relevant.
Okay.
It's just a name. Anyway, so he ordered all the employees to cooperate fully with the hijacker and his demands. Mm-hmm. The aircraft just circled rural Washington for approximately 2 hours to allow Seattle police and the FBI sufficient time to assemble Cooper's parachutes, his ransom money, and to mobilize any emergency personnel might be
They
necessary.
wanted to get him.
So the flight attendant, Schaffner, would later describe him as calm, polite, well-spoken, not at all really consistent with the sort of crazed, enraged, acid-induced, possibly on meth and other drugs, mescaline, peyote, ayahuasca.
So the opposite of a suicide bomber.
Yes, exactly. Those were the stereotypes of the time. And again, the flight attendant was just like, no, dude. He was like, this was business to him.
Probably wasn't his first fucking route. Definitely wasn't.
Definitely wasn't. So Tina Mucklow, another flight attendant, agreed with Schaffner. He wasn't nervous, she would tell investigators. He seemed rather nice, to tell you the truth. He was neither cruel nor nasty. He was thoughtful, calm, all the time. So actually, he would, just mid-flight, he would order a second bourbon with a little bit of water, maybe to sober up. But he paid his drink tab, and he even tried to tip the attendant. Like, after he's shown her the bomb, he's like, here's $3 for the drink, thank you, you'll live.
John, if that is not the sure sign of a gentleman and not a terrorist, then I don't know what it is. But you want to know what happened next?
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, while all this was going on in the air, the FBI was scrambling.
On the ground.
They were scrambling. So they were trying to meet his demands because their very first priority was don't let anyone die.
No, they don't want that.
And
nobody wants that.
They actually managed to assemble all of his required items. So the $200,000, the parachutes, everything else, it was easy. So
refuels, tanks.
At 5:24 that same day, 5:24 p.m. at night, Cooper informed that his demands had been met because he was proven to it by the FBI.
All right.
And they assembled all of the required
They landed
items.
15 minutes later.
Yeah, so Cooper then instructed Scott, the stewardess, to taxi the jet.
No, Scott is actually the pilot in this instance.
Okay, so Scott is the pilot. So he instructs the pilot to taxi the jet that he is aboard to an isolated, brightly lit section of the tarmac and close each window shade in the cabin to deter police snipers.
So, like, you know how there's windows on every aircraft, right?
Yeah.
So he was worried that when they landed, in the distance, there's a sniper on a hill that's just going to be
they're going to blow his fucking face off or something.
Once. So he's like, before we even touch down, close these goddamn windows. That's forethought, which I think is going to be a through line of this whole case and mystery, is that this guy just seemed to know what was going on the entire time.
Have you ever heard of Al Lee before?
Maybe go on.
So Al Lee is actually a famed United executive, and he was actually the person that was tasked by the FBI with approaching the aircraft. And you know what he did? He approached it in street clothes, and delivered a cash-filled knapsack and parachutes to an attendant.
Basically his demands.
Yeah, his fucking Dan Cooper's DB or Dan Cooper's, however you slice it, his demands. So he delivers the stuff to him, and once the delivery is completed, the man only known as Dan Cooper permitted all passengers, and senior flight attendants, Alice Hancock, and all the other flight attendants to leave the plane. John, what do you think of that? And what happened next?
I want to break this down a little bit because this is sort of important to the physics of how actually D.B. Cooper does his operation.
Okay.
So a lot of people might not know this. In most commercial airliners, you enter through a tunnel, right? You go through the little bridge in the airport and you enter through that way. But there's actually at this time there was, I assume there probably still is.
You're entering through the plane's
There
asshole.
is an option. No, we enter through the side.
This was the plane's asshole.
At this time, there is an optional on the back of the plane, it folds down, there's a staircase. So Al Lee, the executive, approaches it from the back, and there's just a flight attendant. I assume an incredibly sexy, potentially ethnic woman in the 70s.
Oh, no, it was not ethnic. This was the 70s.
Dude, whatever.
She was I'm just fucking clown.
I'm just trying to paint a fun picture because those details are entirely relevant. But point is, Al Lee hands off the money and the parachutes to an incredibly sexy flight stewardess via the back of an airplane. Mm-hmm. And finally, after he knows that everything's cool, D.B. Cooper's like, look, we're good. Get these fucking people out of here. Now, so while they're touchdown in Washington, at this airport, Cooper realizes that the plane needs fuel. There's no way that this is all going to go out if the plane fucking runs out of gas.
No, he's got to get to point B.
So he's letting the plane refuel. But during this whole time, he's outlining his fucking flight plan to the cockpit crew. He's just fucking telling them face to face that he wants a southeast course toward Mexico City at the minimum airspeed possible without stalling the aircraft. So basically just like fucking coast it in first gear and like touch the gas.
Fucking 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, whatever. He made specific instructions for the speed, the altitude, the wing flaps. And this is important, he specified that the landing gear remained deployed, inferring an intimate knowledge of the aircraft. Like, he knows what's going on.
So he was the skilled guy.
Yeah, so finally Cooper directed that the plane actually take off with the rear exit door, that same staircase we talked about earlier, deployed. He wanted that out. Mm-hmm. The aircraft agency people told him he was nuts, but he was like, no, shut your goddamn mouth, this will work. And eventually he was proven sort of right. It did take off, which is fine. So we're back in the air. Ben, what do you got?
Okay, so anywho, the ordeal was not over by a long shot. So approximately at 7:40 p.m. that night,
an hour and 40 minutes after he's hijacked this plane.
Yeah, exactly. So the 727 that took off with Cooper, that Cooper had hijacked, with all the various people.
Only was the pilot, the flight attendant, the co-pilot, and the flight engineer.
It was deep in flight. So at this point, 2 fighter pilots of an F-16-06 fighter craft scrambled from the nearby McCord Air Force Base, and they were followed behind by an airliner for refueling purposes. They were tagging right behind DB Cooper's airline. Like, they were ready,
one above it and one below, out of the view.
They were ready.
Couldn't see them.
They were ready to shoot it down.
Fucking piece of shit.
And so after takeoff, Cooper told Mucklow, the attendant, to join the rest of the crew in the cockpit and remain there with the door closed. She complied immediately, and then as soon as Mucklow observed Cooper tying something around his waist, she became suspicious. At approximately 8 p.m., a warning light flashed in the cockpit, indicating that the aft air stair apparatus had been activated. The crew's offer of assistance via the aircraft's intercom system was curtly refused. The crew soon noticed a subjective change of air pressure, indicating the door in the butthole of the plane had been closed. John, what do you think?
So imagine this. Basically, like, what's happening is, like, there's only you're in a plane, right? You got all the seats, the overhead compartments, yada yada. DB Cooper's got all his cash. He's got 4 parachutes, and he's in the back of the plane. There's one flight attendant. She's gorgeous. She's a beautiful blonde, blue-eyed lady named Mucklow.
She's fucking ready.
And so Mucklow is his guide in this, and he's using her to sort of make the final preparations. Anyway, about 8 p.m. he says,
"Who is Mucklow again?"
The attendant, the beautiful attendant. And he says, get out of here, scram, go to the cockpit and be with your peoples. She's leaving. Movie frame. She looks back. She sees DB Cooper tying things around her waist.
Bear in mind, at this point, he's only known as the criminal. He signed in as Dan Cooper. DB Cooper was the epitaph given to him by lamestream fucking media. John, go.
Anyway, so Mucklow observes him tying what she can only assume to be what he's going to connect his ransom to. 13 minutes later, they all sit in the cockpit, unaware. The plane rumbles, things shaft. They feel the back door staircase open.
Okay.
The plane sort of ruxes, and then it's all back to normal. So basically, but then they can only assume what they can only assume at that point is that Cooper is still back because he's instructed them to not leave. They have to assume Cooper is still in the back. So eventually, they land. What happens is at approximately 10:15, they landed the 727 with the air staff still deployed at Reno Airport in Nevada. FBI agents were there, and state troopers, sheriff's deputies, and Reno police. They surrounded the jet, as it had not yet been determined with certainty that Cooper was no longer aboard. But an armed search quickly confirmed that he was gone.
Jesus Christ.
So we're gonna get to the investigation portion.
So John,
so he got away with it. At that point, like they don't know where he is. They don't know who he was or where he was and where he went.
You better believe that the local police and FBI agents who were immediately involved in the case, they had their reputations to stake on.
They're not fucking around.
So they began questioning possible suspects. Mm-hmm. An Oregon man who's an Oregon man who didn't hijack the plane, also by the name of D.B. Cooper, had a minor police record and was one of the
he
first.
He exposed himself.
Yeah, he did. He had a minor police record, but this was not the hijacker. Another man by the name of D.B. Cooper got obtained by police. He was contacted by Portland police on the off chance that the hijacker had used his real name or the same name alias in a previous crime. His involvement was quickly ruled out by a local reporter named James Long. Rushing to me.
Look, basically a reporter fucking was just under pressure from his boss. He messed up. He called the guy D.B. Cooper in the press, and that stuck. So actually, Dan, the actual suspect identified himself always as Dan Cooper, but some junkie, probably
some fucking guy,
some pothead intern fucking called it D.B. Cooper, and here we are.
No, he was the real D.B. I bet D.B. Cooper fucking took some loser's name.
What do you think the B stands for?
No, the media fucking...
Bureaucracy?
No, remember... Okay, do you remember the beginning of the story when they found out that D.B. Cooper was just a guy named Dan Cooper? The fucking hijacker's name was Dan Cooper. That's the name he signed into the airport as.
That's what I
And that's the
just
epitaph
explained.
given to him, and D.B. Cooper was a mistake that the fucking media gave to him. So
exactly. Yeah. Nailed it.
First of all, I did nail it because his name was fucking Dan Cooper, not D.B. Cooper. The media came up with D.B. Cooper. The lamestream media. Fucking asshole. Yeah, what do you think, John? Yeah, come up with a better one.
Look, so during the investigation, they did sort of like an experimental recreation using the same model aircraft, the 727 hijacked by Cooper, and the same flight configuration. FBI agents just pushed a 200-pound sled out of an open air stair, and they were able to reproduce the sudden upward motion of the tail section that they experienced in the actual flight. Probably. It's the 70s.
Yeah.
But basically they determined that... So 8:13 p.m., 13 minutes after D.B. Cooper sent Mucklow into the cockpit, they experienced a rumble and tumble in the cockpit, and from there was smooth sailing. Basically, this experiment that they're running determined that at 8:13, that 13-minute rumble and tumble experiment was actually D.B. Cooper deploying the air staff and ejecting himself from the plane. The irony is that at that moment, the aircraft was actually currently flying through a heavy rainstorm in southeastern Washington. It was over a lake. It's not the ideal flight conditions for a skydive. No, not at all.
I mean, this is something that you only do if you really know what you're doing.
Yeah, which is an irony, I think, is the word.
So John, are you expecting me to continue?
Shortly after the spring thaw in 1972, teams of FBI agents...
This was a famous thaw, by the way, just for a little historical backup, if you don't mind, John.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so 1972 was the most dramatic year in regards to the changing of temperature in human history.
True.
So in Washington State, it went from extremely cold to somewhat warm in an unusual time period.
A thawing, if you will.
and so you know what happened? Ice turned to water faster than was generally accepted.
Known?
John, please continue.
Right, so during that thaw, some 200 Army soldiers from Fort Lewis, along with Air Force personnel, National Guardsmen, civilian volunteers, they conducted a thorough ground search of Clark and Cowlitz counties for a total of 36 days.
They were basically proud to don the name citizen of United States of America. They were willing to make sacrifices. John, please continue.
2 local women stumbled upon, during the search, a skeleton in an abandoned structure in Clark County, but that was actually later found to just be the identified remains of a female teenager who had, of course, obviously been murdered and abducted a few weeks before. Unrelated.
So a solved murder occurred in this.
Yeah, some justice, if you will. Ultimately, the search operation, arguably the most extensive and intensive in U.S. history at that point, uncovered no significant material or evidence related to the hijacking.
John, if I could just give a brief recap. So, what we have right here is we have the very first elite criminal mastermind strike.
A daredevil.
A daredevil
hijacking.
A daredevil hijacking.
Robbery.
Strike the United States of America and use what his malicious will to take from us what we consider most valuable. The tool of capitalism, which is our, whatever money. He took money. And because he took money, I'm sure that we did everything we could to catch him. John, what did we do?
So, right now, what did we do? We kept looking. We kept. They informed the public. They released the serial numbers of all the bills, dollar bills that DB Cooper actually had from the hijacking. They said, if you come across any bill with this serial number, please alert authorities.
Yeah,
because,
I know, but don't just if I may, don't you
asked me what they did?
Yeah, but don't you think that, if you were a 1970s clerk of some kind running a business, do you think it is even remotely practical or plausible for you to check the 9-digit serial number for for a piece of money?
No. I think what they were assuming was, though, that, all right, he gave it $200,000 in bills. A quick math. There's several hundred bills in that equation, right? If you have $200,000, so they're saying maybe, yes, unlike the other slim, but sure, but if one person says, "Hey, I found this bill that is within your serial numbers,"
that's absolutely plausible.
Then why question it anyway?
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Let me talk. This is the physical evidence.
Please talk, then, Your Majesty.
So, in 1978, a placard. So this is 7 years after the actual hijacking took place.
Yeah.
A placard with printed instructions for lowering the aft staircraft of a 727, which D.B. Cooper did. It was found near a logging road about 13 miles east of Castle Rock, Washington, which was well north of Lake Merwin, but that was within the flight's path. It was not implausible that maybe that was in a direction where he could have gone.
Yeah. These are reason-looking people. They want the answers just like we do.
No one's corrupt.
Do you want to know why
this isn't a mystery about corruption?
Do you want to know why we argue on Drunken Mysteries?
Why?
It's because we are deeply interested in getting to the truth.
The truth.
John, please continue.
So, going over again what we have for the physical evidence for this case. Again, so 2 years later, after the placard was discovered in February 1980, an 8-year-old, and this is arguably one of the bigger discoveries as far as honestly the mystery is concerned.
Yeah.
An 8-year-old vacationing with his family on the Columbia River.
Did he pay for the vacation?
Well, I assume there's money changed hands somewhere, So they're up in Washington. It's rural. Pacific Northwest. There's pines, there's beaches, there's tributaries, beautiful sunsets.
Yeah.
This 8-year-old, whose name is omitted from FBI records, maybe you could find
a minor
online,
at the time.
Whatever. He's vacationing with his family on the Columbia River, and this is about 9 miles downstream from where Vancouver, Washington. They find 3 packets. The kid finds 3 packets of the ransom cash with the serial numbers preserved in the sand. This is 8 years after the actual hijacking. He finds it just buried in the sand. Sequential numbers.
Yeah, I know, but here's the thing. He clearly did not...
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's not, though. Here's the reason. Because he did not find all of the money. He found some of the money.
But it's the biggest clue up to the point, is what I'm trying to say.
You know what I'd love to know?
Yeah.
I would love to know what exact denomination those bills were in. Were they 10s? Were they 20s?
They were 20s, I think. It was not basically. I didn't really include it because it's sort of a minor detail. But in my notes, my history, it was not. He wanted sequential $20 bills and negotiable currency. To hit a certain serial mark between us.
So wait, I have a question for you, and I think this is actually important. Do we know how much How much money was their total? Did he want?
He wanted $200,000 today.
Okay, that's all I need. So, how much does $200,000 worth of $20 bills weigh? Can you fucking parachute with it?
Absolutely, dude. No.
You think you can parachute with?
Absolutely.
You think you can parachute with $200,000 worth of $20 bills? How much do you think that weighs?
Hang on. Okay, so we determined that about all the weight of the contents of the money was about 22 pounds. Mm-hmm. So it's very plausible that he could parachute with it.
Yeah.
So, basically, in 1986, after protracted negotiations, the recovered bills from the shore by the 8-year-old, they were divided equally between Ingram and Northwest Orient's insurer. The FBI retained 14 examples as evidence. Ingram sold 15 of his bills at auction in 2008 for about $37,000.
So people are making money
off
of the
whole
successful D.B. Cooper hijacking robbery.
To date, none of the 9,710 remaining bills have been turned up anywhere in the world. Their serial numbers remain available for online public search. In 2017, a group of volunteer investigators uncovered what they believe to be potential evidence, quote, what appears to be decades-old parachute strap in the Pacific Northwest. This was followed later in August 2017, so not even that long ago, with a piece of foam suspected to be part of Cooper's backpack. But I want to get to a real bombshell, something that the FBI only recently sort of revealed.
What happened?
A letter.
Really?
Allegedly from D.B. Cooper himself. There's no real. They don't give it.
Year?
They don't tell you. They don't tell you what year it arrived. They released it within the last year. So
they didn't say when it came.
They do not expressly say when. According to what the research I could find, when it was released. But I want to read it to you.
Okay.
Because I think it's relevant. So here it is. Quote, "Sirs, I knew from the start that I wouldn't be caught. I didn't rob Northwest Orient because I thought it would be romantic, heroic, or any of the other euphemisms that seem to attach themselves to situations of high risk. I'm no modern-day Robin Hood. Unfortunately, do have only 14 months to live. My life has been one of hate, turmoil, hunger, and more hate. This seemed to be the fastest and most profitable way to gain a few fast grains of peace of mind. I don't blame people for hating me for what I've done, nor do I blame anybody for wanting me to be caught and punished, though this will never happen. Here are some, not all, the things working against the authorities. I'm not a boasting man. I left no fingerprints. I wore a toupee. I wore putty makeup. They could add or subtract from the composite 100 times and not come up with an accurate description, and we both know it. I've come and gone on several airline flights already and am not holed up in some obscure backwoods town. Neither am I a psychopathic killer. As a matter of fact, I've never even received a speeding ticket. Thank you for your attention, D.B. Cooper." Ben, speculate wildly.
Wow. So here's what I think. I think that we in our time have the privilege of one of the great master criminals of all time getting away with one of the great heists of our time, and we, the viewing public, having the privilege to witness it. I think that's just fucking. I think it's good, John. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. Like, there's a part of me that just there's a part of me that thinks a lot of the authorities.
He was not a social justice warrior.
No, where did that come from? A lot of the authorities sort of conclude that he didn't make the jump. That he actually didn't survive the fall. Again, he jumped in a trench coat in a thunderstorm into the cold temperatures, not braced for extreme cold. He did not have, to their knowledge, an established evacuation route or anyone meeting him at a certain point. Remember, he's jumping into essentially the Pacific Northwest woodland mountainous terrain. Yeah. So the wide theory by officials is that he didn't even make the fucking jump. He never landed, and who knows. But they never recovered a body, right? Like, they don't. If that's the case,
no,
a body. Exactly. So the point that I'm going to sort of speculate wildly on is that he actually got away. I want to fantasize, romanticize this sort of case because I do
romanticize and fantasize.
I believe that this is sort
romantic fantasize.
Yeah, exactly. Romantic fantasize.
Okay, so here's what I think. You guys, our fucking loyal listeners, the people that I regard as more than family,
friends,
but no,
loyal
as
brethren,
lovers,
loyal brethren,
as I regard a
lovers.
wife, a mother, or a father, or a brother, or a sister. I want you to know this: that DB Cooper taught me something that I had never known before in my young hot life, and that is that there is more to existence than just going through the motions. This was a man who went to such extremes as to hijack a plane for riches. Now we all dream of riches. We are all goddamn Americans, and you know what we do? We dream of riches.
A life better than what we have right now.
Of a life better than what we have now, and he was not willing to settle for that middle class bullshit that so many of us grew up in.
To quote Patrick Swayze in Point Break, he wasn't going to commit himself to people with their metal coffins inching along the highways.
No, you know what DB Cooper was going to do? DB Cooper was going to live to become a living legend. Infamous, famous, celebrated, loved, hated. Every epitaph you could possibly say was something that was described to DB Cooper. Now, I don't know if DB Cooper is actually related to me, or if he is the
related to you personally.
Yes.
I think he is, honestly. Like, I mean, we know he said he used the putty makeup and what have you, but frankly, I honestly think that's a hot lead. I think actually he didn't do any of that.
What are you saying, John?
I'm saying the composite sort of resembles you. Now, Ben, I'm not accusing you. I know you didn't exist in 1972, so there's no way you could have hijacked the plane.
No.
But is it possible that your blood is not the same as one alleged DB Cooper's? We don't know.
I didn't want to get into this publicly, but I think not only is it possible, but yes, it's definitely possible, and here's why. Because
not only is it possible, it's definitely possible.
My brother took a DNA test no less than about 4 weeks ago, and if his DNA tests come back positive for the blood of one DB Cooper, you know what I will? I will shake.
Will you turn yourself in?
No, because I won't be surprised. Here's what I will do. I will reach out to my alleged father of fathers. And you know what I will say? I will say, listen, DB, this is your relative Ben. I don't blame you for what you did. And you know what I think?
What?
I think you would make a fantastic guest on the podcast.
Yeah! Let's get DB Cooper on the podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think that about wraps it up for us, and that's kind of
John, I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's say...
I guess it doesn't wrap it up.
So, John, let's say that you were the last human on Earth.
This is unrelated, I can tell.
And you had two choices.
Yeah.
One was get a vasectomy, and one was get a trisectomy.
Anyway, so like I said, that wraps it up for that wraps it up for Drunk Mysteries. And real quick, I want to thank our producer, as always, Rick Warren. He is our steadfast guardian. He is our light in the dark.
But you know what?
He's fucking all we got sometimes. Also, I want to thank our sound engineer / intern, possibly on his way to becoming a paid intern, Dan Burton.
He also might work at a restaurant in the near future.
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, our sources tonight were basically more or less Wikipedia. There was also basically the record, the article that I found about the mysterious letter that'll arise, and they only released later.
Whoa.
It was on Newsweek. It was on Newsweek.com. It was published by Crystal Hayes on November 20th, 2015.
And if you don't know who Crystal Hayes is, please look him or her up.
Please, Crystal, we would love to talk to you on the podcast.
Is it a him or is it a her?
I think it's a her. I'm pretty sure that it is.
Do you know if it's a her?
No, I don't. Anyway, if you're still listening and you haven't already, please subscribe and review to us in iTunes. It's really easy. You just hit that link, you smash that subscribe button, and you go into reviews and you say, this was the worst / best / sexiest podcast I've heard in 2018. 5 stars. That's all we need from you.
We are just two men
floating along on the path to freedom.
Of minorities that are so obscure you've never even heard of them. And you know, we don't just love you, we cherish you. And here's what we need from you. All we need from you is the smooth sound of the soft fingertips that can type a review on the review board of life.
Or wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all we've got for this week. You will see us next time on Drunk Mysteries.